the drug competition. Feed them TV every day, teach them just how they should play. For the ones that start to stray, cut them off till they obey. A little friend was not the type to want to have to stand and fight. Bully boys all could pick upon a lonely little kid. The grown-ups all looked hard and long, said he's got 2 feet, he can stand on. He never liked the sickly ones, the boisterous ones are much more fun. He found it hard to socialise, 'cause when he laughed, when he cried, in the wrong place he'd be chastised. An idiot to be despised. Never learned to play the game the way that you're supposed to play. Never learned the things to say, or lock emotions safe away. Who was that on the window ledge? Did he jump or was he pushed? He left a note which no one read. In desperate hands the note just said, never turn my back on society. Society turned its back on me. All the world cannot be wrong, it must be me, I don't belong. All the world cannot be wrong, it must be me, I don't belong. All the world cannot be wrong, it must be me, I don't belong. All the world cannot be wrong, it must be me, I don't belong. All the world cannot be wrong, it must be me, I don't belong. The unfree child is full of woe. Into the unfree adult he will grow, and unfree children of his own. On and so it goes. Take your hands from off your genitals, eat those greens and grow up strong. Don't piss yourself, it's very naughty. Stephen, Stephen, don't you shine. Don't speak now, we are talking. Not a word lest you disgrace. There's people listening, don't embarrass us. Never let us catch you masturbate.
Welcome, budding radicals and curious reactionaries. Well, I think I got the new dig set up pretty well. I'm feeling pretty confident about it. So I'm gonna work on doing some more streaming, and kind of keep people like showing people what I'm actually doing, and instead of just arguing on the internet with people, because that is part of it. But trying to get involved in so many different organizations and what works and what doesn't. Today I was on a national organizing meeting call with an unemployment action group. Yeah, I recorded a video of like a response to that and my kind of initial takes. I might release it, I might not. But yeah, there's just a lot of things that frustrate me, like trying to work in like professional organizations. And when I work at the group like Works, which is the worker co-op group I'm a part of, not officially a member, but eventually I'll be able to afford it. And the IWW, it's like way more about getting people engaged and doing things themselves rather than like, hey, give me this money, give me your attention, and let me do this for you. But yeah, we're not going to get too much into that today. Today, I'm just going to go over a couple of the quick news stories of today. The two big ones. Clearly, the GameStop shortstop, fucking Reddit, what have it's. That's like. So my biggest complaint in seeing the stories about this is I keep seeing them compared to like Occupy Wall Street meets QAnon, rather than like Occupy meets Anonymous, which is way scarier. And just the idea that they're just trying to like bridge this gap between Occupy and QAnon. Like, I know, like, if you're not used to propaganda and analyzing propaganda, but it starts with these subtle inferences and false equivalences. Like I said with Joe Biden when he started equivocating anarchists and arsonists. Because when you put those two things into the same sentence like that, you're implying that an anarchist and an arsonist are the same thing. And this subtle trick of the tongue, putting QAnon and Occupy Wall Street in the same category, is also in that vein of like preparing to manufacture consent to crack down on whatever movements try another Occupy style movement. So that's worrisome to me. Overall, fucking Reddit, your boredom pays dividends sometimes. Yeah, most of the time you just go to Reddit to complain about stuff, but every now and then they actually do get something cool done. Yeah, and hopefully people start seeing just how ridiculous the stock market is after that. Like we're all familiar with The Big Short, and like the time that they didn't kind of get away with it, even though they kind of did get away with it. Now they just fucking lost money. There's no like big like restructure. They weren't like really preparing for this to happen at all. So yeah, that's a positive thing. Now for the fucking weird thing, the leader of the Proud Boys, I don't remember his name because I don't really give too much of a fuck. Because clearly, yeah, they've just allowed the Proud Boys to fester without any kind of pushback. So clearly that's not been a thing that they've been actively pursuing against or persuading against. And then we have knowledge now that it's been released that this guy's a fucking informant and has been an informant for fucking years. So Yeah, when the lead guy is an informant for the cops and they just are letting him do all this shit. Well, in the past, when America does this in other countries, it's usually because they're using those far right groups to bring down the boot. So that is not very positive sounding. There's still kids in camps. That's not positive sounding. Biden did do a thing. That was good. Oh, he fired the National Labor Relations Board president. That's good. That was a good thing. He did one other good thing. Oh, we're ending our involvement in Yemen. That's a very good thing. We'll see how fast they actually do that. They also said we were getting out of Iraq, and look where we are. So we'll take that as a grain of salt. We'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it. But yeah, so we're, that's basically the news roundup, I guess. Ever since, you kicked Trump off the internet, like everything's pretty quiet now, isn't it? I'm not going to touch the Jimmy Dore controversy right now. I'll make a separate video for that. Because that's a thing that will require editing. So like actually watching the boot come down last night. I don't know if anyone watches Graham Elwood. He's kind of in the Jimmy Dore verse. He's another comedian turned left-wing pundit on YouTube, and like I like a lot of what he says. Like anyone who's trying to just give me their opinion, I take it, with a grain of salt. You always have to sort through like people's ideological boundaries and definitions and what have you. But so I was watching his show yesterday, and he was defending Jimmy Dore, and in the middle of his fucking broadcast, I posted it on my. I don't think I posted it on Facebook. Yeah, in the middle of the broadcast, it just cuts out. Like I'm doing something in the kitchen. I'm like, oh, is the show over? And then I go and it's on the TV, and it just says this video's been disabled because of policy violation. I'm like, what did he just violate? Like, are you not allowed to say the B word that rhymes with oogaloo? Like, I mean, they were Jimmy Dore had on a black activist who for like the past like I think like 30, 40 years or something like that, he's been like actively going out to Klan meetings and hanging out with like Klan members, and like no, like eventually they'll hang it up, and like he got like a Grand Wizard or the Grand Poobah Dragon to turn in his robe. It was like a TED talk about it. But yeah, that was just fucking chilling. Like seeing censorship happen in like live time, because that doesn't matter who's doing it. If they're preventing, if it was okay a moment ago, and now suddenly no, we can't have that, you're blacklisted. That's censorship. It doesn't matter who's doing it, if it's a government or private industries. If you're prevented from having political speech that does not break existing laws, like it used to be hard to get a lot of novels published because there were existing laws, on obscenity, and then they finally pushed through those. But then people just wouldn't want to publish them because of even though the market wanted them, they didn't want to publish them. And now we're seeing that ultimate blowback from that, where now like the market has gotten so saturated with all of these controversial things, and it thrives so much on it that now we're just like, no, just let a nameless, faceless bot just delete whatever hits these like keywords we don't get to decide on. You know? So that I'm not looking forward to what's coming up here. But yeah, we're not going to expound too much on that. You know, maybe I'll do those as long topics later in the week, and actually do some research rather than just kind of prattling on. I am, I'm a volunteer for Audible Anarchist, trying to create, audiobooks free, available on YouTube and other platforms of, anarchist and libertarian socialist literature. Because just there's a wealth of audiobooks available. All this stuff is, it's fair use on the copyright, and so yeah, just trying to get this information out to as many people, and with all the stuff I've been going through, it's been hard sitting down to like record and edit a thing. So I might as well, like, if I'm gonna try, now that I have this fancy new setup here, try and just get as much out of this as possible, and I don't know, show people what it's like being a voiceover. So yeah, let me get the audio started over here, yeah, so I'm going to make a lot of mistakes, and I'm going to just keep recording takes, so don't expect a nice, fluid reading. That's what editing's for. Editing. Let's do a quick fee-fi-fo-fum. My Sally sells seashells on the seashore. 5 pairs of Don Alberzo's tweezers. 5 fine pairs of Don Alberzo's tweezers. Five fine pairs of Don Alberzo's tweezers. 5 fine pairs of Don Alberzo's tweezers. There's a whole rhythm thing to that. There's a lot more that goes on with that. But I don't remember it. Boris will have to teach me that again one day. Let's get recording here. Anarchy defended by anarchists. To most Americans, anarchy is an evil-sounding word, another name for wickedness, perversity, and chaos. Anarchists are looked upon as a herd of uncombed, unwashed, and vile ruffians, bent on killing the rich and dividing their capital. Anarchy, however, to its followers, actually signifies a social theory which regards the union of order with the absence of all government of man by man. In short, it means perfect individual liberty. If the meaning of anarchy has so far been interpreted as a state of the greatest disorder, it is because people have been taught that their affairs are regulated, that they are ruled wisely, and that authority is a necessity. In bygone centuries, any person who asserted that mankind could get along without the aid of worldly and spiritual authority was considered a madman, and was either placed in a lunatic asylum or burned at the stake. Whereas today, hundreds of thousands of men and women are infidels who scorn the idea of a supernatural being. The free thinkers of today, for instance, still believe in the necessity of the state, which protects society. They do not desire to know the history of our barbarian institutions. They do not understand that government did not and cannot exist without oppression, that every government has committed dark deeds and great crimes against society. The development of government has been in the order, despotism, monarchy, oligarchy, plutocracy, but it has always been a tyranny. It cannot be denied that there are a large number of wise and well-meaning people who are anxious to better the present conditions, but they have not sufficiently emancipated themselves from the prejudices and superstitions of the Dark Ages to understand the true inwardness of the institution called government. "How can we get along without government?" ask these people. "If our government is bad, let us try to have a good one. But we must have a government by all means." The trouble is, there is no such thing as good government, because its very existence is based on the submission of one class to the dictatorship of another. "But men must be governed," some remark. "They must be guided by laws." Well, if men are children who must be led, who then is so perfect, so wise, so faultless, as to be able to govern and guide his fellows? We assert that men can and should govern themselves individually. If men are still immature, rulers are the same. Should one man, or a small number of men, lead all the blind millions who compose a nation? "But we must have some authority at least," said an American friend to us. Certainly we must, and we have it too. It is the inevitable power of natural laws, which manifests itself in the physical and social world. We may or may not understand these laws, but we must obey them, as they are a part of our existence. We are the absolute slaves of these laws. We are the absolute slaves of these laws. But in such slavery there is no humiliation. Slavery, as it exists today, means an external master, a lawmaker outside of those he controls, while the natural laws are not outside of us. They are in us. We live, we breathe, we think, we move only through these laws. They are therefore not our enemies, but our benefactors. Are the laws made by man, the laws on our statute books, in conformity with the laws of nature? No one, we can think, can have the temerity to assert they are. It is because the laws prescribed to us by men are not in conformity with the laws of nature that mankind suffers from so much ill. It is absurd to talk of human happiness so long as men are not free. We do not wonder that some people are so bitterly opposed to anarchy and its exponents. We do not wonder that some people are so bitterly opposed to anarchy and its exponents, because it demands changes so radical of existing notions, while the latter offend rather than conciliate by the zealousness of their propaganda. Patience and resignation are preached to the poor, promising them a reward in the hereafter. What matters it to the wretched outcast, who has no place to call his own, who is craving for a piece of bread, that the doors of heaven are wider open for him than for the rich? In the face of the great misery of the masses, such promises seem bitter irony. I have met very few intelligent women and men who honestly and conscientiously could defend existing governments. They even agreed with me on many points. But they were lacking in moral courage when it came to the point to step to the front and declare themselves openly in sympathy with anarchist principles. We who have chosen the path laid down for us by our convictions oppose the organization called the state, on principle claiming the equal right of all to work and enjoy life. When once free from the restrictions of extraneous authority, men will enter into free relations, spontaneous organizations. Spontaneous organizations will spring up in all parts of the world, and everyone will contribute to his and the common welfare as much labor as he or she is capable of, and consume according to their needs. All modern technical inventions and discoveries will be employed to make work easy and pleasant. And science, culture, and art will be freely used to perfect and elevate the human race, while women will be co-equal with men. While woman will be co-equal with man. That is all well said, replies someone. But people are not angels. Men are selfish. What about? Selfishness is not a crime. It only becomes a crime when conditions are such as to give an individual the opportunity to satisfy his selfishness to the detriment of others. In an anarchist society, everyone will seek to satisfy his ego. But, as Mother Nature has so arranged things, that only those survive who have the aid of their neighbors, man, in order to satisfy his ego, will extend his aid to those who will aid him, and then selfishness will no more be a curse, but a blessing. A dagger in one hand, a torch in the other, and all his pockets brimful with dynamite bombs. A dagger in one hand, a torch in the other, and all his pockets brimful with dynamite bombs. That is the picture of the anarchist such as it has been drawn by his enemies. They look at him simply as a mixture of a fool and a knave, whose sole purpose is a universal topsy-turvy, and whose only means to that purpose is to slay anyone and everyone who differs from him. The picture is an ugly caricature, but its general acceptance is not to be wondered at, considering how persistently the idea has been drummed into the mind of the public. However, we believe anarchy, which is freedom of each individual from harmful constraint by others, whether these others be individuals or an organized government, cannot be brought about without violence, and this violence is the same which is won at Thermopylae and Marathon. The popular demand for freedom is stronger and clearer than it has ever been before. The popular demand for freedom is stronger and clearer than it has ever been before, and the conditions for reaching the goal are more favorable. It is evident that through the whole course of history runs an evolution before which slavery of any kind, compulsion under any form, must break down, and from which freedom, full and unlimited freedom, for all and from all must come. From this, it follows that anarchism cannot be a retrograde movement, as it has been insinuated. For the anarchists march in the van and not in the rear of the army of freedom. We consider it absolutely necessary that the mass of the people should never for a moment forget the gigantic contest that must come before their ideas can be realized. I'm starting to run out of air here. I'm going to take a drink of water and start that over. We consider it absolutely necessary that the mass of the people should never for a moment forget the gigantic contest that must come before their ideas can be realized, and therefore use every means at their disposal, the speech, the press, the deed, to hasten the revolutionary development. The weal of mankind, as the future will and must make plain, depends upon communism. The system of communism logically excludes any and every relation between master and servant, and means really anarchism. And the way to this goal leads through a social revolution. As for the violence which people take as the characteristic mark of the anarchist, it cannot and it shall not be denied that most anarchists feel convinced that violence is not any more reprehensible toward carrying out their designs than it is As for the violence which people take as the characteristic mark of the anarchist, it cannot and it shall not be denied that most anarchists feel convinced that violence is not any more reprehensible towards carrying out their designs than it is when used by an oppressed people to obtain freedom. The uprising of the oppressed has always been condemned by the uprising of the uprising of the oppressed. The uprising of the oppressed has always been condemned by tyrants. Persia was astounded at Greece, Rome at the Caudine Forks, and England at Bunker Hill. Can anarchy expect less, or demand victories without striving for them? All right. Well, that's a pretty quick recording. It's no Das Kapital. But if you guys have any quick questions, about anything in that text, throw a quick comment, in the feed while I stop recording this. And I might as well stop the YouTube that was playing. Going back over here. Going to Reaper. Stopping the recording. So I want to say this was written do we have a date on this? 1896. This was written well over 100 years ago. Almost 120 years ago. Okay. So the degrees of violence which the state was taking against peaceful protesters back then was much more drastic. So the kind of invective at the end there was for a different time when, people were getting fucking shot just for singing songs at a march. There's a famous Wobbly march that, they were just on this ferry on the way to picket a strike. And, they're all singing Solidarity Forever on this boat. And they get to the shore and they're singing their songs and they won't let them on the shore. And they're just still there singing their songs. They're going to get on the shore. And they fucking open fire and kill people. Not the protesters, but the police and private security. So the fight for basic rights in most peaceful contexts like 100 years ago were bloody violent. And it's gonna get more that way as our economy begins to crumble and they have to protect more and more with violence. I am not a proponent of violence. I do not condemn people who do questionable things in the name of good deeds. By all legal account, Jesus, by our laws, Jesus would be a terrorist. The kinds of things he was advocating. He went into the main hall of banking and fucking started whipping bankers and overturning the money tables. Terrorist activity much? And as the proponents of Black Jesus, some of the radical Black liberationists, I've been paying attention to more recently, they make a really good point. They fucking hung Jesus up on wood. That was the first black man lynched, for stepping up against an empire. And that's the work of that, is ending empire, in all of its forms. That's what... Oh, bring me back my Stream Deck. There we go. That's what all of this comes down to, is ending empire in all its forms. Not just the political ones, but the personal ones. Because when we go to work, we exist in an empire. One guy owns everything and makes all the fucking decisions. And the bosses and the managers, all they do is work to make him happy. fuck all what you guys need at the bottom. Unless you're a manager, and you're a manager, your life's not any better, but you're just, getting treated a little nicer. So, like anarchists were like some of the first earliest proponents of the general strike. Some of the first earliest proponents of worker cooperatives. So many things we're the revolutionaries of because we go for communism now. That's what it means. Communism now. Let's all share and share alike and try and get back to that thing that God created for us back in the beginning and then got fucked up by a couple psychopaths once we started accumulating extra grain. So, yeah, like if you guys... I'm going to start a Patreon because Money Train's running out. And, I'm going to be looking at doing landscaping, which is going to fucking hurt with, like, my ticker going on. So if I don't have to do overtime to, like, pay all my bills, if I can spend more of my time doing this, that would be great. So, if you could, like, share, make sure you hit whatever button to get live notifications when I go live, if you want to keep track of the live. Send me stories I may have missed, stuff like that. I look pretty and professional now, and I sound pretty good. So, step one, look and sound good, and people might take you seriously. And then get your friends to come on. I'll see you guys during the week. Everyone, make sure you call someone that you might think is having a hard time and let them bitch. Validate their feelings. And if you can help them, help them. But right now, just being there and letting people be heard and be felt is like step one. And also stay the fuck home. Stop going places. Like, being in Tempe is terrible with all this no one's wearing a mask shit. So what do we got playing on the old... We're going to go to the next song in that. All right. Well, you guys have a great week, and I'll see you later.